Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you for joining us today. We're going to go ahead and get this meeting started. Today is June 13th, Tuesday, 2023, 5:01 p.m. We'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. Thank you to everyone that is joining us today, to all of my board colleagues, Dr. Stubblefield, Mr. Goheen, to all of our staff that are present, and to all of our guests that are joining us today. Whether you're here in person or joining us online, thanks for being with us today for our regularly scheduled school board meeting. So as we do at every board meeting, and before I do that, I do just want to check if there's anyone who needs interpretation. We do have our interpreters here, so I will ask in Spanish. Antes de empezar, quiero saber si tenemos alguien que solo habla o entiende español. Si necesita intérprete, tenemos un intérprete aquí para poder ayudar. Si puede levantar la mano, por favor. Perfecto. And we'll give just a moment to make sure that we have our interpreter work with our guests today. So ahorita le van a ayudar con el intérprete. Gracias por acompañarnos en esta tarde para nuestros invitados y todos nuestros empleados. Gracias por estar con nosotros. So we'll just give one quick minute while we set up. While we're waiting, si hay alguien más que necesita un intérprete, por favor levante la mano. Tenemos a nuestros intérpretes aquí hoy día para ayudarlos. Si necesita ayuda con interpretación hoy para nuestra reunión, por favor levante la mano. Okay. And Daciel, whenever we are ready, if you would just give me a thumbs up to let me know that we are good to go. Okay, it looks like we are good to go. Thank you, and we'll keep on the lookout if there are other Spanish speakers or someone else who needs any type of interpretation. We'll make sure that we have that available for you tonight. So thank you for joining us. So as we do at every board meeting, we will read our board norms and protocols before we get started. We agree to respect differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. Again, good afternoon, and thanks so much for joining us, everyone that is here with us today and virtually. With that, Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call?
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, present.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, present.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, present.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, present.
Rachel Russell.
Rachel Russell, present.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, present.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Is there a motion to approve today's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark.
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell.
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The agenda has been approved. So we'll jump right into our agenda items. First agenda item is item number 2. Again, a treat that we have before us tonight, board and staff and friends. Tonight we get to recognize our spring sports all-state. So I'd invite Ms. Tammy Romstad to the podium. Good afternoon, Ms. Romstad. Welcome.
Good afternoon, President Lopez, members of the board, and Dr. Stubblefield. Today we are recognizing our spring sport athletes who represented us at the state track meet. Each one of the athletic directors is going to announce the students at their school, and we're going to start off with boys state track.
My name is Cedric Taylor. I'm athletic director at Washington High School. To represent Washington at state on the boys' side was Chadrick Jones. But before we go there, let me introduce the coaches first that worked with Chad to get him to the point that he was able to go to state. And that would be Ms. Kimberly Rollins and Mr. Stephen Benson. And Chad Jones was our representative in the 100-meter run, 100-meter dash.
Good evening, Board. My name is Rebecca Skinner. I am the Assistant Principal and Athletic Director at Sumner Academy of Arts and Science. And today, for our gentleman that is here today is Mr. Jamil Johnson. We also have Ms. Morrison, who is in the building as well. He did participate in the 4x100-meter relay, so he can go right over there for me, buddy. Also, graduating senior, graduated. The other boys that competed at state were Howard Peoples, Samir Moore, Damarion Shine, Jonathan Bandy, Ori Scruggs, and Jason Dillon. And then also, we did have Marcus Dirks, who did qualify but did not compete. So that's Sumner Academy.
Good afternoon, everybody. And you know what, it's a beautiful day. I do want to remind you that it's always a great day to be a Bulldog.
Hey, 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 hey!
And with this beautiful weather that the Bulldogs help the area. Sadly to say, our mail is not here tonight, but I still want to announce him. Kamari Murray from Wyandotte High School qualified in a high jump. If I could please just give a round of applause so when he sees this video. Thank you very much.
And that's why we don't let Rufus have the mic very often. He does a Travis Kelce thing. All right, we're going to do the girls' state teams.
From Washington High School on the girls' side, we had Kaylin Lawrence, who was trained by Coach Rollins. She took 5th in the 300-meter hurdles at state. She was not able to be here tonight because she's in the Upward Bound program, and she's currently in Wichita. And she is a sophomore at Washington. She'll be a junior next year.
All right, and for our girl competitors at Sumner Academy, first I do want to honor our girls' head track and field coach and also my athletic secretary, Ms. Shirlise Wesson. Thank you so much for all of your work. Who's escorted by my son, Trey Trey. For our young ladies, we did have Kylie McCleary, who is a graduate now in the 400 meters. She did get 8th place. And then also we had Kyla Burdette, who competed in the high jump as well as the 300 hurdles.
I want you to get a good look. I'm not taking over, but if you have your phones and your cameras ready,
Go ahead, Ruth.
when we get those out. As you can see, we're well represented by the young ladies of Wyandotte High School, where, you know, they are living a dream. We're going to go ahead and start with this group. It takes a team effort. This is the 4x1 relay. I will go ahead and announce, I'm sorry that I'm Unique Johnson is not here tonight, but she was a critical piece of the 4x1. The youngest member tonight, she'll go ahead and step forward so y'all can see her. She is a baby of the group, Jazz Maloney Cooper. Okay. And if Mr. Sims can please stand up. You know, that is her father who's here tonight. Okay. This next young lady, it's the next oldest, this is Jalen Hunt. Okay. Coach's father, his mom not taking any claim for her recognition, the 4x1. She is also on the National Honor Society. Sorry. Okay, we want to thank that. So please give her a round of applause. Daisha Morgan. Hold it right there. And if Tracy Dirks, her mother, will please stand up. You see, it's like a mini-me. Dashay, also National Honor Society three-sport athlete, three-season athlete for multiple years, and also coached her mother. Okay, thank you very much. And I will try to work on my Espanol. Jacqueline Perez Vila, please step forward. What you're looking at is in the 6A class, 400. She did also qualify in the 8. She did not medal, but she did medal in the 400, the third fastest time in the state of Kansas. Okay. And I want you to know that her mother's here today. Okay, I'm gonna try not to mess this up. Try my best. Teresa Vela. She was, please stand. Jackson Jr. will be coming back. I want to thank you for your time this evening, but I want you to know also these are outstanding young people, and they couldn't have done it without their coach who's here tonight, their head coach. His birth name is John, Bryan, but everybody knows him as Coach Richie Bryan, head coach of the Wyandotte Bulldogs. Coach, congratulations, and thank you for the hard work.
Thank you, Ms. Romstad, and thank you to all of our coaches, to our schools, to all of our student athletes. Congratulations to each one of you and to all of you collectively for all of your great work. And to all of our student athletes, even if you weren't recognized tonight, we're proud of all of you, but special shout out to everyone that was able to be here tonight with us. So thank you to all the coaches that were here tonight and staff, and to all the families that support them as well. All right, we will continue on with our agenda. Item number 3, we have reached our community comment section of our agenda. Just a reminder that everyone can sign up for a community comment. Please just do so no later than Monday at noon, the day before the board meeting. And you can do that with Ms. Leslie Smith, our board clerk, and she'll make sure to get you all the information. Before you leave, if you are giving comment tonight, just make sure you have checked in with Ms. Smith so that she has your contact information in case we need to follow up with you. Typically, we will have one of our staff members, one of our administrative leaders who will reach out to you as any follow-up is needed. So we want to make sure we know how to contact you. When you get to the podium, you will have 3 minutes, and you should start by giving your name, and then you can start your comment. And your time will start after you give your name and begin to speak, and you will have 3 minutes. Board, tonight we do have a guest who is giving comment, and she will give her comment in Spanish, but we have her comments have been interpreted into English. So her comments will go for 3 minutes in Spanish, and then they have been translated, and I forget the young lady's name that is with us tonight. She's going to read the translation in English so that we can hear that as well. So we will, if it is okay with the board, we'll have 3 minutes in Spanish for our comment, and then it will be interpreted into English for another 3 minutes. So, en este momento vamos a invitar a nuestra invitada que viene para dar comentario en nuestra reunión, María Pariagua, y disculpe si no dije su nombre correctamente. Si puede pasar y puede dar su nombre. Y tiene 3 minutos para dar su comentario. Después de los 3 minutos, le vamos a pedir que si puede parar de hablar, pero tiene 3 minutos. Y después de sus comentarios, vamos a dar la traducción al inglés. Pero bienvenida y gracias por estar con nosotros esta noche.
Hola, buenas noches. Mi nombre es María Paniagua y estoy aquí porque soy la mamá de 2 niños, Alex de 8 y Santiago de 4. Santiago tiene un diagnóstico de autismo severo nivel 3, un retraso en el desarrollo y distorsión en el lenguaje. Estoy aquí ya que al agarrar yo este diagnóstico me di cuenta que la mejor manera de ayudarlo es la intervención temprana, con lo cual logré conseguir un par de terapias para poder ayudar, que fueron terapia del comportamiento, ABA, terapia de lenguaje y terapia ocupacional. Y para mí la cereza del pastel era llevarlo a la escuela, que él pudiera estar pues con más niños, lo cual tomé cartas en el asunto, lo inscribí y él entró a clases regulares durante los 3 primeros meses. Logré conseguir una IP después de presionar un poquito y estaba contenta ya que en el IP se suponía que eran muchas cosas buenas. Durante la IP yo ofrecí que se le otorgara a mi hijo el servicio de RBT por medio de ABA y por políticas del distrito no fue aceptado. No iba a tener ningún costo para la escuela, pero fue rechazado, ya que en la clase eran 7 alumnos, 3 maestros y aparte las terapistas extras. Sin embargo, durante su primera semana de escuela de educación especial, él tuvo 3 incidentes, los cuales fueron 2 rasguños y una mordida que la verdad estuvo bastante fea. Y esto fue lo último que yo acepté recibir de la escuela. Yo estoy aquí porque yo quiero formar equipo con ustedes como distrito o con ustedes como escuela, pero necesito que ustedes nos puedan escuchar a nosotros, hagamos equipo, formemos como, no es solo decir, oh, las políticas no se permiten esto o no se permite aquello, sino juntemos sus esfuerzos con los de nosotros porque por cada niño hay un papá y por cada papá está la escuela. Entonces, este es su lema, usemos su lema como parte de algo real, de algo que realmente funcione. Y es que mi hijo se llama Santiago, pero estoy segura que como Santiago hay muchos. Estoy segura que no solamente Santiago con un diagnóstico de autismo, hay niños con dislexia, hay niños con otras cantidad de necesidades específicas y creo que tenemos mucho por trabajar. La comunidad hispana estamos abiertos a ayudar, solamente denos la oportunidad. Y perdón si me trabé mucho, pero muchas gracias.
Gracias, señora María.
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Maria Paniagua, and I'm here because I'm the mother of 2 children, Alex, who is 8, and Santiago, who is 4 years old. He has a diagnosis of severe autism level 3, a developmental delay, and language distortion. I'm here because when I got this diagnosis, I realized the best thing for my son would be early intervention. For that reason, I was able to get a couple of therapies to help him, which were behavioral therapy, ABA, speech therapy, and occupational therapy. And for me, the icing on the cake was that he could be in school, which I took action on immediately, enrolled him, and he went into regular classes for the first 3 months. After that, I was able to get his IEP. The only problem was that I had offered an RBT, a registered behavioral technician assistance, which was not going to cost the school or school district anything, but was going to be an extra support for my son, which was turned down due to school or district policies, since he was in a special education class that had approximately 7 children, 3 teachers, and not counting the therapists that were going to come in to support the teachers of these children. However, still within the first week of his special education classes, my son suffered 3 separate incidences, of which there were 2 scratches and a horrible, horrible bite, of all of which I do have photos. At this time, and this was the same child in the class of 7, which I think is a lot for my son to have experienced. That is why I'm here today. Though it was a small class, if you don't have the necessary services and you cannot provide them, why do you not accept the help that we as parents are willing to give? Maria also invited and said that the Hispanic community is willing to partner with the district and is asking the district to partner with parents because they all want what is best for their children. She spoke on Santiago's diagnosis, but also she said there's not just her son Santiago with autismo, but also kids with dyslexia and other special education services that they need. At the end of the day, what parents want to do is they want you to listen to us, and we want to listen to you. We want to form a team together because, as she said, at the end of the day, if she helps her son now, he will need less help as he grows. This is not an issue, not just about her son Santiago. The problem is there are many children like Santiago who need his support, and they are not receiving it. Thank you.
Thank you. Muchas gracias, señora María, señora Paniagua, por acompañarnos. Un representante de nuestro equipo de liderazgo se va a poner en contacto con usted para ver si hay más que quiera hablar con nosotros. Gracias por acompañarnos. And I was just sharing with Ms. Paniagua that a member of our administrative leadership team will follow up with her and thanking her for joining us today, and that we will follow up and be in contact with her. Okay. Continuing with our agenda, item number 4, our consent agenda. We entertain a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Next up, we will hear, I'm sorry, Ms.
I
Page?
do have a comment.
Yes.
For some of the MOUs, I received some calls, and they were questioning, once we approve them, could they be signed quicker? Because there seems to be a delayed process. They're not getting back to them on time. And I remember earlier, when I was on the board, they did it that night. I don't know what the protocol is now, but there was a concern, because they're not getting them back as quick as they thought we approved it. What's the delay? So I just thought you might want to know that.
Yeah.
They're listening and they're watching, and they're just wondering why they're not getting it back as quick as we vote on it. It should be coming back quicker than the way it is.
Yes, absolutely, Ms. Page. Thank you. We'll make sure that all the contracts and MOUs are signed and returned to all of those partners that have been approved for an MOU. Thank you. Our next agenda item, we will hear from our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Anna Stubblefield.
Good evening, everyone. I have a few announcements this evening. First, I just want to start off by saying Happy Pride Month to everyone who's celebrating and to our LGBTQ+ community. I also want to say congratulations are in order for all of our 22-23 retirees. Today, we held a red carpet celebration in their honor and took the time to recognize those who could participate. So on behalf of KCKPS, we want to say thank you to the 45 staff members for their hard work and dedication. The Human Resource Department will host a dual-site career fair in the community tomorrow. Both fairs will take place on Wednesday, June 14th from 3:30 p.m. to 6 p.m. at the Kansas City Community Church located at 5901 Leavenworth Road, and the other one will be held at the 8th Street Baptist Church located at 4020 North 8th Street. We just want to say thank you to both of the churches for allowing us to host a fair there, and we're also reaching out to churches and other community partners to go where people are going to recruit more staff members. The summer learning program completed its first week last week, and we're into our second week. During the enrollment window, there were approximately 4,453 students who registered. Last week, we had about 2,622 elementary students to show up. During the registration, it was 2,622 elementary students who registered, 466 middle school students, and 1,351 high school students. Last week, we had approximately 3,740 students in attendance. We are reaching out to families at the various level so that students will attend. Our attendance rate at each level at the elementary was about 83%, and the high school and middle school was about 72%. Weekly incentives and activities are taking place at all of the school sites, and we're excited to say that through our partnership with the Park Wheel program and the Learn to Swim, we were able to add additional spots for fourth grade students to be able to participate in the safety around water and the Learn to Swim program. Many of our students are keeping busy during these summer months. A group of high school seniors got an opportunity to experience what it feels like to be a college student thanks to a special trip. Approximately 50 students made an hour-long trip to the University of Central Missouri in Warrensburg, Missouri. They spent a week in the college town to get a better understanding of what college life is all about outside of the classrooms. Organizers say attending the college for the very first time. Several of them were, and they can say it was very daunting, but the students learned a lot. During the week, students participated in different group activities focused on getting them out of their comfort zone and getting used to their new surroundings. This trip was also featured at the trip also featured various workshops and keynote speakers. And as you heard one of the athletic directors share, we have students who are also participating in the Wichita Upward Bound program and other programs that we have partnerships with in the community. This is just a reminder that the Department of Equity and Diversity and Inclusion will host its second annual When You See Me conference on Friday, June 23rd at the Kauffman Foundation. This is a free event. To register, please visit our website. And I just want to highlight both Ms. Russell and Dr. Campbell are session presenters, so if you go, you can hear both of them present. And lastly, we want to invite youth in the community to join a discussion and dialogue about the implementing strategies to prevent violence as our overall goal. The Youth Think Tank event will be held here on Tuesday, June 27th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. We are doing this in partnership with several community organizations. So if you have any youth, they are more than welcome to come on that day, and we'll continue to share more details around that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Just a few comments from me. I did want to just briefly share of a conference I attended last week that I went to for work. It was the Grantmakers in Health Conference in Minneapolis. And I just wanted to share some highlights that I thought were really relevant with the work that we do here at the school district. It was a pretty powerful conference. There was a lot of focus on equity and health equity and what that means. And I think many of the sessions talked about starting young and working with our early childhood and expectant parents, and just and the focus on starting young to make sure that we are creating a healthier community. And so I just found that reassuring in the work that we're doing here at the school district and with from all levels, from pre-K to all of our high schools, and just, again, the importance of health equity and what that means for our community. Also, civic health was a huge topic of conversation, making sure that if we want a healthier community, we need to get our folks engaged, not just registered to vote, but actively participating in the democratic process and voting and coming out to speak in front of elected officials and in other ways. Shaping policy, having community organizing is a way to long-term and effectively create a healthier community. So I just thought that those sessions around civic health and civic engagement were powerful. We also had the opportunity to hear from Secretary Javier Becerra, who is the 25th Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services. And he spoke, first of all, I'll say, to see a Latino in that position, for me, was just powerful to see someone who looked like me, who had a similar story as me, who I could share a language with, was just powerful for me as an individual attending the conference. And I think about what that does or what that means for our students here in this district when they can see someone who has the same background culturally, traditionally, language-wise as them as well. So I think about our diverse students, but also our diverse staff, and how important it is for us to continue to push that and making sure that our district is reflective of our student body. But for me, it was very powerful to see a Latino in that position. But his remarks were great around just the work that we have to do as our speaker tonight shared collectively. Not one group can make the impact that we're looking for. Collectively, we've got to come together and shifting power from philanthropy, in our case for the conference, to the people, to community, to make sure that communities always had the power, right? We just sometimes have to be reminded that that's where the power lies, is with people and with community. So I thought that was pretty powerful. And one statement that he said, prevenir es mejor que remediar, or prevention is better than the cure to have to remediate. And I just thought that that was powerful for us in education as well. If we can get started young, and if our kids can be kindergarten ready, and if we can close the reading gap, the literacy gap, if we can change some of these things early on, then we wouldn't have to spend as many dollars as we do, or as much time as we do at the middle school level, high school level, to try to catch folks up. So prevenir es mejor que remediar, in the words of Secretary Becerra, and actually they were the words of I think he said his mother. And then lastly, I just wanted to also share, I had the opportunity to visit the George Floyd Memorial, where George Floyd was murdered. And it was a powerful, and I still don't have the right words to describe how I felt and what that space held, and what it means for the community there. But it was just powerful to be there, quiet, but I can only imagine all of the chaos that was going on at the time of his murder. And so just to learn about how that community has rallied around the family and the community as a whole, but there's still so much work for us to do, and I'm reminded, I bring that back to our community and how much work we have to do here as well to lift up equity and justice and belonging, and to knock down the walls of racism and discrimination that continue to exist and persist in all of our communities. So I just wanted to share that because it was a powerful conference and convening, and lots that we can bring back. And I was able to share some of the work that we're doing here at the school district. I was there on behalf of the Health Foundation, but a lot of the things that we're doing here at the school district, I believe at the last school board meeting, we lifted up our black male mentors at J.C. Harmon, and was able to share part of that story with folks in some of our sessions, and how meaningful that is, again, for our young males, our young men of color. I was able to share about the work that we're doing with our resiliency, with our trauma-informed work, our social-emotional learning, and we have a social-emotional coordinator on staff. We have a trauma-informed coordinator on staff who's doing some amazing work, and I didn't say it, but the conference also lifted up that work as something that can be very impactful. So the fact that we're doing a lot of the things here in this district that we spoke about in the conference gave me a lot of hope for what we are doing here. And the theme of the conference was to stick with the long game, right? Because they know change doesn't happen overnight. But if we stick with it, are patient, and are consistent and persistent in what we want to see, then we will make effective change. So longer than what I thought I would share, but I just wanted to share those experiences because I thought they relate a lot to the work that we're doing. So with that, I'll open it up to any other board members who would like to share. Ms. Russell.
Yeah, I just wanted to say happy Pride Month as well. This past weekend, I had the opportunity to go out to Quindaro Park to join community members and staff members as they were rallying and discussing the horrendous bills that we have seen at the state legislation that has demonized inclusion within our school buildings, and the work that still needs to be done to ensure that everyone does have a sense of belonging in all of our buildings, but also in our community as a whole. And I think that is work that I am committed and dedicated to continuing to elevate. I'm excited that our district is hosting this conference and this event, and there are some really great tracks. So this is an open invitation to not just come hear your lovely board member Rachel speak, but to hear some of the really great speakers in the lineup. And literally the keynotes to the end of the day are really, really moving. And so shout out to our DEI committee. But I also, part of that rally was also to talk about teaching truth. A lot of times the history of how we got here and how we are in the places we are in are not told to their complete story. And so I will continue to advocate for the continued history classes that should be taught and need to be taught in our school curriculums to ensure that our kids are well-rounded and that history is not lost. It does in fact meet state standards, and there are other districts doing the work. It is a code situation that we need to figure out. So I will continue to advocate for that. I will continue to advocate for gender-neutral spaces in all of our buildings so that folks truly have a sense of belonging. And then I will also throw in, I think it would be great, I got to spend the weekend at the Pride Festival, that belonging also comes in sharing these experiences with individuals in our community. And so if there is a way for us to pursue looking at being a part of the parade or having a table or whatever that means to say KCKPS is a place that welcomes everyone, I think that's not only a good recruitment strategy, but also speaks to the work that we're committed to here. And then lastly, I will just close with an invitation. I've spent some time at Parkwood Pool. I've spent some time hanging out with kids at the neighborhood park. I also saw some students at the Pride Festival. And so just to continue to encourage us to be engaged, summer is, while it's a break from the masses of all the things going on, there are some great dance studio open houses. Our kids are at the pool literally Monday through Thursday. So there really are some really great opportunities for us as board members and community to be out supporting our kids, whether it's athletic prep, all of the things. And so I really want us to be engaged in community work this summer and really out there supporting and hollering and all of the things we do through the school year. So yeah, thank you.
Ms. Clark?
I have a couple of comments. So the first comment is I do want to echo Happy Pride Month. There have been tons of celebrations that have happened, just as was just mentioned. Next, around the corner is Juneteenth, and so there's lots of celebrations this weekend that will be taking place. And then lastly, I want to call out that we lost a community member and also an employee, Dickie Guess. And so and his family also, some family members work for the district. So I just want to call out that we did lose Dickie Guess and just make sure we're all aware. So thoughts and prayers with his family.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Nguyen?
Thank you. Saturday, June 3rd, I attended the KSB school board of directors meeting. And so in addition to their regular business, they did share with us that we are to share with our board members a draft of their strategic plan, 23 to 28, preliminary agenda for the CUBE conference in September. And this is, I think, the subject of a webinar that's already posted, the conversation-driven performance evaluation of the superintendents. And so I'll have Ms. Smith make a copy of all three, hard and electronic. So thank you. And see you Juneteenth.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Ms. Page?
Yeah, I too just want to say Happy Pride Month, Happy Juneteenth. Hope to be there Saturday as well. And to the Guest family, give my condolences as well. They played an integral part in our school district. some of us, the females on the board, got a chance to go to the Women in Politics meeting, which was good to network with other women in our city and our county. Also went to the retirement program today, and that was good. And I know COVID has changed a lot of things, but I would love to see us go back to the traditional dinner to celebrate our retirees. Just my opinion, when people work 30 and 40 years, I'm not saying what we did wasn't good. It was good. We want to appreciate people, but I'd like to see us go further. So when we talk about budget, to think about that, to roll out really the red carpet for them. Again, my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, board, for sharing. Just two pieces that I was reminded of. First off, board, you should have received a calendar invitation. Thank you, Ms. Smith, for sending that out for our special budget meeting on June 26th. It's a Monday from 9:30 a.m. to 12:30. That'll happen here in person in the boardroom, so hopefully you have that on your calendar, and we will continue to follow up on our board budget, department budgets, and continue in the budget process. I know Ms. Smith and staff have been sending out additional information. Board Docs was down, so they weren't able to upload everything into Board Docs, I don't think, but I know they will continue to send out information for that conversation, including our board priorities and whatnot. So stay tuned for more information, but hopefully you have that on your calendar. That will happen June 26th, 9:30 a.m. here in the boardroom in person. And then the other thing that Ms. Smith reminded me of, thank you, our KASB appointments are due coming up, and so currently we have Dr. Nguyen, who is serving on the Board of Directors, Ms. Maxine Drew, who's serving on the Legislative Committee, and Ms. Janie Humphreys, who is serving on the Nominating Committee. We need to reappoint members to those positions. If you are interested in continuing to serve in the position that you're in now, please let Ms. Smith know so that we can make sure to have that information. If you are interested in serving in a position and are not currently in a position, please also let Ms. Smith know so that we can do our due diligence and make sure that we get our appointments completed in a timely fashion. So thank you for that reminder, Ms. Smith. Okay. So we will continue with our agenda. Our next agenda item is item number 6. We will have an update from our library building project. So I would invite Mr. Jim Schrader and Carol Levers to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Lopez. Good evening, board. Good evening, Dr. Stubblefield. Tonight we plan to share Kinetic's findings on the library campaign readiness review as promised. But before I call our advisory chair to introduce our guest who will share that report, I would like to acknowledge some of the members of the Library Advisory Board in attendance. If they can stand. Thank you. So at this time, I will hand it over to our chairman of the advisory group, Jim Schrader, to greet you and introduce you to our guest. Thank you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And thank you for everything that you do. I have some personal experience with all the work that it takes to be up on this dais, and very much appreciate all the time and effort that you all spend. So, ladies and gentlemen, as co-chair of the, with Rosalind Brown back there, of the KCK Advisory Committee for a 21st Century Library, I am pleased to provide you with a short update on our committee's progress regarding a new downtown library. Yes, our advisory committee has adopted a new name, more reflective of what our community is seeking. The library in Kansas City, Kansas has had a rich history over its 168 years of existence, and our goal is for it to continue to flourish through this century as well. As I believe you are aware, the Kansas City, Kansas Library Foundation for the past several months has been investigating various opportunities for helping fund a new library. Primarily among those was contracting with Kinetic, a consultant firm doing fundraising. And over the last few months, Kinetic has conducted individual interviews with key community members as well as with major local and national philanthropies. Last week, the foundation and Kinetic met with our advisory committee. They brought very good news to us. They confirmed to us what we had already believed, notably that there is strong community and philanthropic support for creating a 21st century library in downtown KCK. I'm happy to report that the Foundation and Kinetic are willing to share some of their proprietary information regarding these findings, but because these current findings are very confidential, they have asked that this not be done during a public meeting. Mr. Dave Smith is here tonight with Kinetic and will be available to discuss this privately with you. The goal of our advisory committee is to make good on the promise that KCK Public Schools made back in 2015. That 2015 mill levy sets aside funds to be collected for a new downtown library. Over the past 8 years, approximately 1/3 of the funding necessary for such a library already has been collected. There are a variety of no tax increase mechanisms that can be used to accelerate the time needed to get to the finish line. Our committee pledges to work with you, with your staff, and with the community to achieve the goal of a 21st century library sooner rather than later. So we look forward to discussing this with you more fully during an executive session, and thank you always for your continued support. So,
Thank you, Mr. Schrader, and thank you, Ms. Levers. Would ask if there are any comments or questions specific to what was shared publicly. If not, there is some information that we will discuss in executive session. I just want to make sure in case there's public. Yes, Ms. Russell.
Yeah, so you commented that 1/3 of the finances for the library have already been raised. Do we have an update? I believe last year at this time, when we were going through budget season, we did actually see the numbers. Is there clarity on what that has grown to over the year? Is there clarity as to what that dollar amount looks like at this
I am
moment?
probably not the best person to give you an exact figure, but yes, that has continued to grow, as you would imagine. So we'll discuss that. Yes, Dr. Stubblefield.
I was going to say, we can probably, in the budget meeting, when the library has their budget report, but also Ms. Kaiser and we can get that information to you. We'll work.
I don't just want it for myself.
No, I'm
I want
saying
it,
to
okay.
the public. We'll just drop it in
Right.
that
I mean,
portion.
from what I understand, it's well over $20 million that's already been
I
allocated
think
to
there
that
were
mill
some
levy.
discrepancies and misclarity last year, so I want to be clear with what we're talking about
Right.
as we
No,
move
it's in
forward.
the $20 million range, so
Thank you.
it's not an insignificant amount of money, but building a new library is not an insignificant amount of dollars to raise.
It's not a cheap expenditure, yes.
As any building project that you have done, you understand that we wish things were not as expensive as they are, but we all know that they are, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Page?
Yeah,
Yes.
when you came before the organization that you represented, you said you had funding. So how,
Well, we're going to talk about that in our
Okay.
executive
Yeah.
session. So
okay.
it's
So,
still confidential at this point, unfortunately.
Oh, okay.
okay, if there are no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to recess to executive session to discuss acquisition of real property under coma, going in at 5:52 for 25 minutes, and would invite Dr. Stubblefield, Mr. Goheen, Ms. Carol Levers, Jim Siebold, Rosalind Brown, Stevie Reynolds, Pat Bruni, and Mr. Dave Smith.
In addition, Steve Lilly, Doug Clemens, Dr. Campbell, and Ms. Samry Devon.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second. Hold up.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion?
Oh, we'll be in the room right next door to the boardroom, room 333.
Seeing none, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
2 minutes, Jamie. Get there, Jamie.
Motion to return to open session, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes?
Rachel Russell.
Rachel Russell, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would now entertain a motion to recess to executive session for consultation with the attorney on matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under coma with, wait, give me 1 second. I would just want to make sure that's the right one. Okay, sorry, I just wanted to make sure that was the right one. Recess to executive session for consultation with the attorney on matters which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship under coma with potential action to follow, going in at 6:30 for 7 minutes.
So move.
Second.
Any questions? Not, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes?
Rachel Russell.
Rachel Russell, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. motion to return to open session, please?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Questions? Hearing none. Ms. Smith?
I'm sorry, who's second?
Moved by Ms. Drew and seconded by Ms. Humphries. Thank you.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen. Thank you.
Thank you. We are back in open session, and we will continue with our agenda. Item number 8, board, these are board updates and potential action if the board chooses to do so. These have come before the board at least once, but they are coming back for potential action. So we will start with item A. It is recommended the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education approves the MOU between Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools and the Partnership for Regional Educational Preparation Kansas City, or PrepKC, submitted by Dr. Fernandez Flores, Dr. Judith Campbell, and Dr. Anna Stubblefield.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Are there questions or discussion? Seeing none, Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next item, and I anticipate that there will be some questions or if there's any clarification, but it is recommended the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education approve the KCAV Audio Enhancement Safe and View Path in Common Areas utilizing ESSER 3 funds in the amount of $8,450,000 as submitted by Dr. Campbell and recommended by Dr. Anna Stubblefield. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. I would now open the floor for questions or discussion. Seeing and hearing none. Ms. Smith, roll call, please.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie
Humphries, yes.
Thank you. Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes. I love when we prove Randy wrong.
Thank you. Me too.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. Our next agenda item, item C, it's recommended that the Kansas City, Kansas Board of Education approve the Cisco SmartNet renewal with Converge One, Inc. in the amount of $85,893.15 as submitted by Mr. Rashid Hoda, Dr. Conrad, Dr. Campbell, Deputy Superintendent, and Dr. Anna Stubblefield.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Seeing and hearing none, Ms. Smith, roll call.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries. All right, our next agenda items are new business items. Board, these are for informational purposes only. No action is being required, but they are in front of you. Hopefully you had a chance to review some of the materials. If you have questions, now would be a great time to ask these, any questions you have on these two items. Otherwise, please submit any questions that you might have as you review the documentation to Dr. Stubblefield, and we'll make sure we get the appropriate answers, responses, and clarity for all board members as they are asked. The first item on our agenda, item A, is the early childhood class observations. Are there any questions on this agenda item currently? Yes, Ms. Russell.
Can we just get a synopsis of what this is from a person?
And I see Dr. Cook coming to the podium.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Cook.
And then as she come in, I'll just clarify, there are certain things that we're required to have, but for early childhood. So if it looks like we have DigiCoach or other observations, there are specific things that we have to use in the early childhood program that is very different from our K-12 programs.
Okay.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So class observations are a required component of Head Start, as well as all of our other early childhood grants, our state pre-K grant and our ECBG grant. And so a class observation is a teacher-student observation that happens in 20-minute increments. You go in and you do it 3 different times. Somebody has to be certified to do the class observations and go through the training, and then they do the observations, and then they score it. And we do this as a required component of Head Start, and then once in our 5-year cycle, Head Start comes out and does their own class observations on our staff in our classrooms, and we have to meet a certain threshold with our scoring, or we get put into an automatically recompete category. So what we're trying to do is do them twice a year to make sure that we're above that threshold of needing to automatically recompete, and then also using the class observations as a coaching tool to show which domains teachers may be a little bit lower in, and then coaching to bring those scores up higher.
And is this at one particular building, or this is done for a long period of time consistently to get that data across time? And I will just throw my last question at you. My last question is around what have we previously utilized? I heard you say we do this over and over. This is coming to us for the first time.
Right.
How have we done it
Right.
differently before?
Okay, yeah. So we do these observations twice a year, and they are done in every single classroom. So we have 48 classrooms, so each of those 48 classrooms would have a class observation in the fall and a class observation in the spring. And then after the observations occur, we debrief with teachers and then set goals and then work towards those goals for the second one. So a couple years ago in 2021, we did utilize Lakeshore as well as what I'm asking right now to do the class observations because we were coming back in the classroom after the pandemic. There was a lot going on, and we wanted somebody from outside of us to do the observations to kind of take things off our plate. We're kind of back at that point because we ask the instructional coaches to do the class observations, and so it ends up taking them out of their coaching and out of their classroom support role for anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks, twice a year, to go into classrooms that aren't their own classrooms, do the observations, and then have to write up the whole observation to then give to the actual coach. So what we're asking is, instead of our own instructional coaches taking the time to do the actual observations, they'll still be trained in the observation tool, but they can use their time to coach and support classrooms while somebody from the outside comes in and actually does the observations and the write-ups for us.
Okay. And my follow-up question to that answer is, does that not mean that we need to probably create in-house positions instead of having someone from the outside come in? I heard you say that you've done that in the past, but you've also utilized instructional, and that's something you can share the data or whatever around the difference of why it matters to have a inside versus an outside. I'm not sure I understand that, if the criteria is the same.
The criteria is the same, so everybody has to go through the same process to be an observer. I think the hope is that our instructional coaches at the early childhood level can stay in the classrooms and coaching instead of taking 2 weeks or more to observe in other classrooms just to complete the tool to then have to debrief. So it's more about the best use of our time and resources and really getting to the student level and coaching. To your point of, can we hire in-house people to do this? That's something that we could definitely look at, because this, asking somebody from the outside to come in will cost us about $200,000. So it's something that we could look at. I think we have to look at capacity, who would supervise these staff, what would they be doing when they're not doing class observations. So at this point, I think there's a lot of questions and things we need to think through than just adding staff to the mix to add staff.
And I will add, internally, and thank you, Dr. Cook, one of the things that we are committing to evaluating and actually partner around is our early childhood programming across the board. And I've talked with Dr. Cook and Dr. Washington because we have invested and paid a lot of attention on what we want the outcome to be. And we have great programs in our early childhood, don't misunderstand me, but if our students enter kindergarten ready, we will see greater outcomes on the backside. So that is something that we are focusing on this upcoming year.
Yeah, and I would echo that. And I
Yes.
think the consistency of having someone who's doing the coaching sessions from year to year to continue to, hey, this is what your last group looked like, or this is the goals. I think that to me is more meaningful than giving $200,000 to Lakeshore. So, thank you.
Thank you. Are there additional questions or points of discussion on this item? Okay. If not, thank you, Dr. Cook. If additional questions come up, please make sure we send those to Dr. Stubblefield, and we will get the responses to all board members. Our next item, item B, under agenda item 9, is the partnership with Urban Station and the potential MOU. Are there any questions on this item? Seeing none, I would just say, if you haven't had a chance to visit some of the Urban Station or see some of the work that they've done with students, I've personally had the opportunity to do so. It's a great program, great initiative. We've been doing some things with them in the school district already, and this will help firm up that relationship and really put it on track with our Diploma Plus and curriculum instruction to make sure that they are aligned with some of those experiences that we're asking for students. But if there are no questions, as questions arise, please make sure to send those to Dr. Stubblefield, and we will get any responses to all of the board members. Okay. Our next agenda item, we have a board report tonight. Board, before us tonight, I'd ask Dr. Lori to come to the podium. We get to hear an update on our special education cooperative. So thank you, Dr. Lori, for joining us tonight. Looking forward to hearing the report. Board members, there will be time for questions, but if there are questions, I would just ask Dr. Lori for, you can ask as we're going along, but there will be time for questions as well at the end. So good evening, Dr. Lori. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening. Good evening, Board President Lopez, Vice President Clark, all board members, Superintendent Dr. Stubblefield. I first would like to take a moment to acknowledge the Wyandotte Comprehensive Special Education Cooperative Board with Dr. Stubblefield, Dr. Dane with Piper School District, Superintendent Brungard of Bonner Springs and Edwardsville School District. I'd like to acknowledge my state mentors, Neil and Doug, for their support and guidance through this past year. Our special education mission and vision is for all students that we serve here in Kansas City, Kansas. And our special education priorities are aligned to the Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools strategic plan and priorities. And you will also find alignment to our KCKPS, KISA, and board goals. Our SPED report this evening focuses on Kansas City, Kansas Public School District's data, which has been used to inform decisions and guide my actions. You will also hear from two members of my executive team, Compliance Officer Doretha Henry and Assistant Director Dana Nelson, and they will provide an overview of the various components in which they supervise and share highlights of our department. I want to start by sharing general information regarding the number of students being served in Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools. We currently have 3,360 students being served. Roughly 1,070 students are served in our membership districts. IDEA are students with disabilities, which account for 13% in our student population in KCK, and 1.7% of students are gifted students. When examining this graph on this slide, majority of our students, that's 1,271 of our students, receive services for learning disability. And our next largest category is DD, for developmentally delayed. 674 students receive services under that classification. And they receive that classification at the age of 3, and they maintain that classification into elementary school, and will switch over or be evaluated by the time they turn 10 years old. Over the next few slides, I will review the district's trend data analysis for state indicators and determine compliance for our state level determination. The compliance report is usually made available the end of February, beginning of March. And this report is sent to the superintendent of every district, and it's also sent to the board president of the districts. The state makes it public in May. I use the district's trend data analysis to plan and develop action steps. The 4 clustered indicators that you see here is based on the 2021 school year data. With the exception of 1920 school year during the pandemic, we have reached our state target for students with disabilities. We have not reached our state target for this past school year. However, this is the highest district rate that we have received for students with an IEP graduating with a regular diploma. Thank you. We do recognize that students have options based on data in the IEP team if they stay in school to age 21. But that should be a very small percentage of our students, considering that most of our students are served in the regular education classroom. But it is worth noting that we have increased in that area. This next indicator, 3A, we had an overall increase of students participating in the state assessments, and we are getting closer to meeting the state targets. As you see here, our 4th grade levels did reach their goal for participating in math and in reading. Indicator 3B looks at our 4th grade level. They increased in both reading and math proficiencies, meeting our state targets. And our 8th grade level in reading was the only group that did drop just below the target. But overall, I am really pleased with how our students are exceeding the state expectations when it comes to the state targets. Indicator 3C. As we are looking into our special education programming, these are our students that are mainly served in our self-contained classrooms, and they have been found eligible to take the alternative state assessment called the DLM. And as you see here, we only had our 8th graders in math that reached the state's target. So this tells our leadership team that as we are looking at special education programming for our students who are receiving services in more of a self-contained classroom, that we will have to provide additional support and resources for students and teachers. We do feel that this current school year's data, in which we will not have to report on for another 2 years, should be headed in a positive trend. More walkthroughs, observations, and talking with staff about what the needs are to move our students in this area will be a focus for next year. For indicator 3D, this slide shows our testing groups are closing the achievement gap between SPED students and Gen Ed students. We have all green here displayed. With continued focus on instruction and instructional support for Gen Ed and SPED teachers and paras, our district intentions around MTSS, we can expect to continue to see the growth and the gap that are between our 2 populations decrease more. Indicator 5. This is about placements, where our students are being served. We continue to serve majority of our students in the regular education classroom. And although, as you can see in indicator 5B, we have not met the state target for students who need a smaller separate setting, we are showing that the 21-22 school year was our closest to meeting this target in many, many years. You can see the data from 2014 up to FFY 2021, and 8.14%, although not 7% or less. This is the closest that we have gone, and we will continue to strive to meet our students and support them in their least restrictive environment. Indicator 6 looks at our least restrictive environment for our children in early childhood, ages 3 to 5. Excuse me. This school year is the first year that we've offered a continuum of services for children at this age. And although I do anticipate that we will see an increase in area indicator 6B, from now, when the data is made available, we should not exceed that state expectation. So I anticipate that we will maintain meeting our state target once we get the data from this particular school year. Indicator 7, this looks at our early childhood outcomes, the performance data. It provides information on whether students who are entering our early childhood special education programs are leaving the program ready for kindergarten. This data is based on the school year 21-22. It's also important to note that the state collects this data directly from our teachers. They provide the assessment and they submit the data. And so this is another area of opportunity. As you see here, we have those red that indicates we have not reached that level of state compliance yet. But it is an opportunity that I believe with this year's focus on our new adoption and the implementation of Frog Street and offering the continuum of services, that we should begin to see more students exit our early childhood programs ready for kindergarten. Indicator 8, the essential question for indicator 8 addresses, did the school district facilitate involvement as means of improving services and results for your child? That's the essential question that is asked on the parent involvement survey. So KSDE only tracks the responses of parents of students with disabilities. So you do not have this information shared with our parents of gifted students. We also are assessed in this particular indicator as a cooperative. So we're looking at all 3 districts for this. The state threshold is not very high, but from responses that we do get that are assessed on the essential questions, our parents who did participate provided favorable responses. Our goal is to find more consistent ways to have our families provide their input. And with some of our current efforts, we believe we can increase the response rates for years to come. The next 5 indicators you see, the data is also based on the 2021 school year. I will be able to talk more about how the state determines meeting compliance in the next upcoming slides. However, the data does show us for indicators 9 and indicators 10 that we met expectations for not over-identifying students based on their race or ethnical group. And we did not overqualify students in specific categories. But I did have interesting conversations this school year with state about we need to be really proactive, because what we did find in the data is that the fixed ratio for students who are white, who are being qualified for special education, they are usually qualifying for other health impairment or for emotional disability. And so when in that conversation I was having with the state about this, it led me to believe we needed to be proactive, because if this is something that they're saying that we need to watch out for, we need to put some process and procedures in place to prevent that from happening. And so one of the things that I took away from that conversation that I implemented is that our school psychologists who will be evaluating students, if they are considering qualifying a child for for emotional disability or other health impairment, they are to collaborate with a team of psychs to review that case to ensure that we have not missed a classification that we can have for a student outside of OH or emotional disabilities. And if the data is what the data is, and the student truly is a student who qualifies under emotional disability or other health impairment, they proceed with the team and make that call. But this is something that we're implementing to make sure we're not over-identifying not just white students in those areas, but any students in those areas. Indicator 14. The state requires us to monitor what happens to our students with IEPs after they graduate. And KCKPS was selected last year to collect data. And we did meet a target for the first time in many years of our students with disabilities enrolling into a higher education within 1 year of leaving high school. We met that at 45%, which is over the state's target. This data allows us to see how students fit into the district's North Star goal. When our students can compete for a career in our community, when they can go and further their education, then we know that the work that we've done has benefited those students. Indicators 15 and 16. For Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools, I did not have to represent last year any resolution sessions or mediations. I do note on this slide that we had 6 state complaints this school year that was investigated that resulted in no findings against the district. Our last indicator for compliance in timely and accurate data submission. This is the second year that the state has compiled this data in this format. We get 23 points for timely and accurate data. We can lose and we can gain those points every year. This compliance indicator is one that has not been able to be met in this district since 2013. It is it's very tough because there is really no room for a lot of error. The error margin is very small. But we continue to make all efforts, and we are dedicated to changing these outcomes. And our compliance officer will share more about this when she presents. So what you're looking at here is a summary of all the indicators that impact our state level of determination. And although we see the green and we have made progress, we still have a long ways to go until we can say we are a department that is 100% compliant. That is my goal for our department, and we will continue working towards that goal every day. So these next 3 slides I will share is just a different type of report that I got from the state, but is over the same information that I just presented. But the reason why I wanted to share this information, because in our WICO SPED board meeting, we had one of our superintendents asked for a very quick glance to see what is positive, what is not positive, so they can look at this data and be able to understand it. And so we came up with this to be able to identify by the green stars what was met and red stars on what was not met. This slide, indicators 11, indicator 12, and indicator 13. This particular slide shows how many files were reviewed by the state. Indicator 11 is timely evaluations. The state randomly selects files. They selected 15 files to review out of our over 3,000 files. And of the 15 files that they reviewed, the evaluations were properly documented and they were held timely for their review. The same is true for indicator 12. where students, before they turn the age of 3, they must be evaluated and have an IEP in place. And out of the 65 files that the state selected, all of them were found to be in compliance. For indicator 13, this is our secondary students around transition. At the age of 16, 15 files were randomly selected and 2 were found to be missing a compliance piece. And because of that, we were not compliant in this area. So I just wanted to let you know that this is just the state snapshot of determining whether any district in the state of Kansas are meeting the timely and compliance expectations. This is not truly reflective of the other 3,000 files that I charge our coordinators to review, because it's not just good enough to have 15 files meet timely evaluations when we got over 3,000 kids. I want all kids to be compliant. And so if you're just looking at this, this is what the state is requiring. But I am requiring so much more. Our leadership is requiring so much more. It's more than just this number. So I just wanted to explain that to you, that this information is accurate, but we do have other concerns and we have challenges that I recognize that impacts this. And one of the challenges was around our school psychs. And we have been, and I'm just going to be very transparent, we've been trying to dig ourselves out of the hole, so to speak, since last year. And we had to get really creative on how we were going to meet the psychological services of all of our students, over 4,000 students. And it has not been easy, but I can say that our plan to overcome has been in effect for 2 years. And we have had some amazing school psychs join us in our team since we did have a mass exodus 2 years ago. And one thing I can say about our psych team is that they knew what they were walking into. I was very transparent when we interviewed and we hired. And they knew that, but they didn't give up, and they came back again this year and they said, I want to be a part of the change. And I know that means extra hours and taking on extra buildings and trying to do those things, but they didn't give up. And I am grateful for that. But this year particularly, we had some unexpected challenges that were like out of our control, so to speak. We had a psych who had several buildings assigned to her this year, and she went in and she went to the doctor, and later she passed away. It was very unexpected. And then we had another situation where a psych was in a very bad incident and no longer could work, could not return. And we had other psychs, for whatever reasons, family reasons, that had to step away from the work. And so with all of these things that were unexpected, that we did not expect to have to go through, we asked a lot of our school psychs to pick up the slack and to take on buildings outside of their buildings, and they did that. And we have been chipping away at what was left behind all year. So when you see and when you hear about, well, yeah, we have a kid that might not got evaluated this year, or maybe it took a little longer than we expected, those were certain situations that are true in some cases, and we have been trying to mitigate through that all year. And our building leaders, especially those that were impacted by the loss of some of our sites, they have been very vocal, yet they have been understanding. And we own what didn't happen, and we are working towards making it right. And that is what our team does, and that is what our team continues to do. And all due to all that could have been prepared, our psychological services for students, and we're going next year into a cluster approach. And the reason why I wanted to do that, because of the situation that happened this year that I could not necessarily plan for, it made me realize that this could happen at any time. So we have to be prepared when these things happen because the state says you got this deadline regardless. When we went to a pandemic, they didn't say because we're at home, you don't evaluate. We still had to meet those expectations. So for planning for next year, we've decided that we're going to go into the clusters that's on our sites, and we will stack those clusters with in-person sites, virtual sites, academic evaluators, site facilitators, whatever we need to do to make sure if something happens to an individual, because life happens, that we will have a team there that's ready to take on that building and complete the necessary requirements. This is the last slide that I've already shared, but these are two compliance indicators that I discussed previously. Timely and accurate data is the one that continues to haunt us, so to speak, but we're going to make that change. I'm sure we will. So I just want to shift your attention real quick to SPED discipline data. This is our definition in our state handbook for significant disproportionality. This is something that I've reported over, so I'm going to kind of go faster with this. Our expectations, the goal for the state is to be under a 3.0 risk ratio for student suspensions. And here is the moment where I am very proud to present, because last year during this time at the board report, I shared we had a problem with over-suspending our Black students in special education. I shared that we had over 1,200 suspensions during the school year of 2021 from April to the end of the school year coming out of the pandemic. And our district data was in the red with over a 3.0 risk ratio. I didn't receive that information until February of 21-22 school year, and I immediately began to share that data, meeting with district leaders, meeting with building leaders and staff. I recall sharing that report even here, saying that if we did not reduce the suspensions, we would lose 15% of federal funding for special education. And I believe before my tenure, this might have been something that actually happened before. So it was very important to me to not let this happen. So I am very proud to share that based on our data at the end of last year, from February to May to be exact, we have avoided the penalty. And I want to thank our building leaders, our district leaders, our staff for your support and for listening to the call of action and responding in a way that supported staff and students, both gen ed and SPED. Now, by no means am I saying that we can lighten up and go back to doing old practices. But what I am saying is that we are headed in the right direction. We prove that we can make a difference in our practices and our procedures that's happening in buildings around suspensions. And we are in the right direction, and there is still room for so much more improvement on how we handle students with discipline issues. But I am thankful we were able to change this outcome. So now at this time, I would like to bring forth our compliance officer, Doretha Henry, to provide an overview of the student data compliance.
Good evening, Board President Lopez, Vice President Clark, and all board members and Superintendent Dr. Stubblefield. I will be going over 3 areas of SPED department in which I oversee. The MIS data assistants are working hard at completing our end of the year updates into our SPED Pro system, which is our IEP system. As of 6/5/2023, we had 3,461 upload, and today I'm glad to report that we have 3,595, which for us is an improvement because last year we had 3,530 around this time of the year. As we begin to look at the factors that Dr. Lori mentioned earlier about that impacted our timely and accurate data, please keep in mind that this is last year's data from school year 21-22. Those factors included communication with school buildings and SPED departments regarding when students exited, when and where they went, staff shortages, that also resulted in the evaluations being held late or not at all. 21-22 school year was in fact our first functional year of our IEP system. And we did have several issues that we had to work through in order for our IEPs to be uploaded into our state system. Also, educator ID numbers on certifications did match names being used, like name changes if someone got married or people wanted to use nicknames. So if your name was Elizabeth, they wanted to go by Liz, and that's not how it works when it comes to those educator ID numbers. I do want to ensure the board that we have a plan for navigating our next steps for reaching 100% compliance, which include or has included meetings has been held with district leadership and other departments to develop processes for exiting students with SPED services. We have continuing meetings with CompuSped, which is our IEP system, to resolve system issues and errors on reports that are found. All students 10 years and older with DD, which is developmentally delayed, disability category, will be evaluated before school year begins for this 23-24 school year. And as a matter of fact, we have a lot of evaluations that are currently going on right now as we speak this summer. There is also an upcoming training that we will be holding at our convocation come August 10th around all IEP compliance across the board. Next, I would like to talk about our Medicaid billing. This year, we submitted 2,300 doctor prescriptions for Medicaid eligible services from our related service providers. This graph that you see depicts the 22-23 school year numbers of scripts sent out for our returning and new students with SPED services. The batches are sent out as they are coming due for renewal or when new students enter into our co-op. This next slide captures our Medicaid replacement aid payment for claims and reimbursements for when related service providers log on Medicaid eligible students. As you look at the breakdown of the different services provided, you see that this year we were able to recruit $1.29 million for our Medicaid eligible students for what we call the magic window from February 22nd to March 8th. The claim amount that you see at the top, as you see, is about $6.4 million, a little bit over, and that's what we received from school year 18-19 all the way up to now, which is a huge thing for us here in the SPED department. This year, we did have more parents not willing to consent, as you see the little slight difference in between last year and this year, but we just want you guys to always keep in mind that that's always optional. Parents do not have to consent to Medicaid billing, and we are always appreciated when parents do consent. This year, the Medicaid specialist and myself had the opportunity to attend a conference for our new documentation software, Laserfish. Relay, the system that we are using through Laserfish, allows K-12 school districts to simplify their special education services documentation and Medicaid claiming to increase reimbursements while decreasing districts' time and effort for submitting files. Laserfish allows us to not only upload documents, but it is secure and help us in maintaining SPED confidentiality compared to our old way of how we used to submit files, which was just using Google Docs, Google Drive, Google Sheets, everything was Google. Last but never least is our Secretary of Student Information Management. This year, from records requests and state reports, we have exited a total of 378 students, and we're still counting because we are still closing out our end of the year processes. The Secretary of Information Management also assists with the child find process. This graph compares the month-to-month parent referrals from last year, 2021, to this year, 2022. The school year for 21-22, we had a total of 199 parent evaluations received. This school year, we had a total of 229 parent evaluations received. The increase or numbers are because that we are realizing that more parents are seeing that their students are struggling and have been requesting testing. We also have cases where schools are noticing that students are struggling, and they are encouraging parents to also reach out to the SPED department to request for testing as well. I would like to thank you for your attention and your time. And next is our Assistant Director of Special Education, Dana Nelson.
Thank you so much, Doretha. To our Board President Lopez, to Superintendent Dr. Stubblefield, and to our illustrious board, good evening. Also to our parents and all who are watching the presentation and learning more about the work that we're doing in our department to advance our students' instructional ability as well as their achievement, and how we are supporting our staff and our students with progress throughout the year. My name is Dana Nelson, as she mentioned, and I am the Assistant Director, and I oversee many of these processes within our department. So we set a goal that we talked about last year in our board presentation of being able to have a 10% increase in our ELA, which is our reading, and our math scores as assessed by our state assessments. We have lots of job-embedded professional development and many different strategies that we've used to ensure that we are providing the support to our staff so that our staff in turn can support our students in their growth. As you know, we have some instructional service delivery models that we've not wavered from, first of which is the co-teaching, and we use our four most highly effective strategies and models for that, which is our station teaching, our parallel teaching, our alternative teaching, and then also our team teaching. We also use direct instruction in the secondary level, where we have students that are able to progress at our ELA and our math with specific GVCs that are high impact as it relates to our student testing and achievement, but also in a smaller environment with a pacing that helps them be as successful as possible. As you can see, we try to keep that at number 10, but again, sometimes with staffing, those numbers can exceed that, but we make sure that even when we exceed, we're not compromising instructional integrity. We also have academic support, which allows our students who are learning those job readiness skills, ability to advocate for themselves, study strategies. It's a great opportunity for them to have this customized and personalized learning opportunity with staff who are trained to provide these kinds of supports. We also say, well, what's so special about special ed? Well, it's special because we have specially designed instruction. SDI is the model that we use along with our Universal Design for Learning, which allows us to have better access and equity for our students in learning provision. So here's the part where if I could sing, I'd sing, I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. I'll leave that to Dr. Lowry because she's the songbird in the group. But I will tell you, there are so many exciting things happening with our achievement and our assessment data. We set the goal of a 10% increase, and we always look for educational benefit. So sometimes it's not just about meeting the mark, but also how are we improving and edging our way closer to the mark. If you look at these data samples that are here, this is our reading assessment, our ELA data as assessed by the state. Of course, we love to see more students in that green and that blue section, but when you look at how is our progress from year to year, so from 2021 data to 2022 data, we've reduced the number of students who were in that orange section at our district level, and the state also did the same. We also were able to increase our students that were in the yellow section, which means they are approaching those post-secondary readiness and success factors. And then we also increased our level 2 by 2.3%, and our level 1 went down just slightly, but as you see, there are such bigger gains in some of those other areas that would be anticipated. Overall, we had a 14.3% increase in our reading performance scores for when we compared 2001 to 2022. Yet the state declined 6.15%. So, just saying, KCKPS, teachers, staff, parents, leaders have all contributed to these success factors, and we're so excited to see that we were able to outperform the state by 332%. Another exciting thing, and one that we are also monitoring and keeping our eye on because we are working collaboratively with our general education partners, we wanted to see how are our students, because we know that in the real world, there's no such thing as an IEP after age 21. You know, our members are part of our community who have disabilities, and they are competing with our community members who are not identified as having disabilities. Well, our students were, based on our data for 2022, in our reading and ELA was 15.7% considered proficient or on target. Our KCK students, which we looked at them with all students, so those are peers that are not identified as having a disability, it was 13.6% proficient, and then our state was at 21%. So at this point, based on the data for this year, we are closing that achievement gap, and our students with disabilities are just slightly outperforming our students overall. And so if you look at the state number, we're closing that gap as well. So the margin is closing, and we anticipate seeing that same result and trajectory. The same thing that we're excited about with math, we did see a dramatic reduction in that level 4 orange by 17% in our math performance when we compare 2021 to 2022. Our 13% increase happened at our level 3, that yellow section. Our level 2 went up also 3.5%, and then just a little slight increase with our level 1, which was fully proficient. Overall, we improved 12.2%. The state, on the other hand, had a level of improvement comparatively of 3.97. So once again, we outperformed the state improvement level when we looked at our students with disabilities in the area of math. We saw similar kinds of increases. Of course, if you are reading better, your math is better, your science performance is also better because both of those skills are melded together to have that performance indicator. Again, we look to see what are our students doing in comparison to all students within the state and also within our district who are not identified as having disability. Our students were able to be proficient at 12.4% that had disabilities. Their non-disabled peers, or all students comparatively, were 10% proficient, and then the state was 29%. So you can see we are closing the gap, but there's more work to be done in the area of math. And we continue to collaborate with our partners in curriculum instruction and also looking at MTSS to bridge the gap so that we can have all of our students proficient. It's not us against them, it's us for us. And so we want to make sure that all of our students are closing that gap when we compare ourselves to the state. This also gives us a key indicator on our trajectory. This is predictive data that we get from our FastBridge results. You can see that in our A reading and A math, these are our predictive indicators. We see a positive slope for students that have IEPs, not only in the reading and math. So this gives us a key idea that when we were waiting for that data to come forward from 2022 to 23 school year, we're looking forward to seeing the same kinds of gains that we experienced for my 2021 to 22. I cannot do this work, and none of us can do this work without an exceptional team of instructional coaches. They are, in fact, our instructional pedagogy specialists, and so some of them were here a little bit earlier, and I just want to say that thank you to all of them who do the work and the teachers that also are willing to have them work alongside. We know this is not only just a labor of love, but it is hard, hard work, and it requires commitment on both parts. One of the things that we adopted as a team was with the district, and we aligned ourselves with our curriculum instruction focus with using the Diane Sweeney model that looks at a 60 to 40% ratio, meaning our instructional coaches, and there was discussion when you were all talking to Dr. Cook about the role of the instructional coach. We want to have those instructional coaches spending 60% of their time side by side with teachers, walking alongside, providing that job-embedded professional development. The other 40% of their time, ideally, then would be spent with preparation, their own training, and other comparisons. So you can see that we provided that upfront to all of our teams and teachers so there was no lack of clarity of how we intended to spend our time and what our goal was for the year. We also provided a coaching menu. What does it look like when we come out? What are some things that you can ask of us? And of course, this is just a menu. If you need it customized, we are here to customize. We believe in personalized learning, not only for students, but also for our adults. As you can see, by the end of fourth quarter, this was very exciting. I love crunching numbers, and this one was particularly exciting. You have to remember, too, that our coaches are intra-district coaches, and so they have to travel between here, our partner districts, and all around to do many different jobs, and they are always willing to do and other duties as assigned, and we're very happy that they're willing in that area. But as you can see, we were able to exceed the ratio that is recommended with 68 to 30% ratio. So we're spending a lot of our time in those classrooms and supporting teachers. We re-strategized by identifying that we needed to structure support differently and differentiate for new teachers versus teachers who were just new to KCK versus teachers who were new to special education versus people who are on an alternative pathway. So we keep very close records about what are our coaches doing when they're out in the field and enumerate that as such. You can see first and second quarter, average coaching cycle moments were 56 minutes. We had lots of time with our teachers during their plan time to talk about coaching events as well as provide that direct contact. We are slated to have 14 instructional coaches. We started the year at a deficit. We also then lost one of our coaches because she needed to care for her family, and so our numbers reduced again. But even with the reduction in numbers, again, just like Dr. Lowry mentioned, people stepped up to the clarion call just to get the work done, and we're so proud of them for doing that. As you can see, the timing started to decrease because as teachers started to feel more confident, they said, I think I need a little bit less time. But as we started to enter into those coaching agreements and some more specific strategic training and support with them, the hours increased even with those vacancies. We also processed referrals that came to us from our Google form. Last year we had more of them, but I think this year more people understood our role and understood how to get in touch with us and who their person was in terms of contact. We also had lots of electronic means for contact. In that intensive support cycle, we were able to have those coaching agreements. That meant that teachers had agreed to be a part of a coaching cycle. Sometimes it was also part of progressive coaching, but it was always a positive intent and a non-evaluative process to improve their performance. From the first semester, September through February 2023, we had over 1,500 hours of direct service in classrooms with teachers and students. And then in the last quarter, those last months, we had over 1,200 hours of direct service. As you can see here, this is where we had introduced our behavioral team. You'd heard earlier where one parent was mentioning RBTs, BCBAs, the good old special ed soup of letters, that alphabet soup of letters. But our BCBAs are behavioral specialists, and our RBTs are registered behavior therapists. We have a specialized team under the direction of a BCBA who is also a SPED coordinator, and we also have our lead instructional coach, who is also a BCBA, lead this work. The behavior team looks at and examines how can we support those buildings and schools with the referral process. As you can see, the word is getting out. People are realizing that we're here and they're summoning that work. In 2021, we had referrals at 50. Now they've gone up to 69, and with that trend line, we expect that that number will continue to increase. So we are really excited about the support that they can offer. What are people saying? As they say, what are the streets saying? They're saying that these teams are coming out and providing very directed support that has direct impact on students and teachers. For instance, one said, I have made several behavioral team referrals, and each referral was provided with a prompt response. Before the behavior team helped, one student's behavior necessitated evacuating the room numerous times. Another said they observed the students and completed the most informative reports, providing insight into behaviors and functions of the behavior, strategies, and interventions. Their input led to a change in behaviors and many success stories. Now, accompanying that, we have our behavioral support team, but we also have our autism support team that is part of the work of TASN at the state level. We do have that support, and our lead instructional coach, who is highly skilled in the area of autism and behavior and also BCBA, leads this work. Part of what we do is have our team trained, and they go out and look for opportunities for students and teachers who are saying, hey, I feel like there's some concerns here that need to be addressed. I don't know if it's autism or not. I'm not sure. This child may or may not have a diagnosis, but could you come take a look at this student? They've gone out and done 39 different types of referrals, and you can see those categories listed there. We also like to produce all kinds of tools and referral documents to help with that. But what does this AIT process look like? With those referrals, it resulted in 9 educational autism determinations. Just because you have a medical diagnosis does not mean that it impacts you educationally. But we were able to discern the difference between what you suspected, looking at behavioral set, and also maybe a diagnosis to what is educationally relevant for a student. This is a very intensive process that requires 5 observations, many conversations within the team, and also many touch points. As you can see for this year, we had about 312 touch points for this team, and each referral requires about 20 hours of AIT specialist effort. And you say, gosh, that's a lot of time, but our kids are worth it. Making the right determination so that we can determine what is the best outcome for a student is worth that time investment, and we've seen a 42% increase. This is another big celebration. We are leading the nation in the highest usage for Goldbook. This is amazing. I know last year we had high numbers, but we have far exceeded any expectation, and we are at 53,775 resources that have been accessed across the co-op, but mostly in Kansas City, Kansas Public Schools by our active users. This is a 24% increase over last year. We have all kinds of different professional development that has been provided by the Goldbook people. So of course, this has been an investment by the board and supported that investment financially. It has paid off. We are seeing great dividends in not only the training aspect, but also in the usage aspect. And I wanted just to shout out really quickly some of our highest usage schools, and we're looking at the data as a team instructionally to dig deeper to see if the correlation that was inferred by our Goldbook team, that if we see high usage, we'll see high impact and outcome. Leading the pack was Carl B. Bruce with over 3,200 access points. Silver City Elementary had over 2,400, and then for high schools, J.C. Harmon also had 1,100. This is really important and significant because our middle schools, and Dr. Scott was here, yeah, she's there. Middle school had the highest usage and access rates compared to the elementary and the high school. One area that we do see as an area for growth, and really we have some great things happening with our collaboration with early childhood and our early childhood special education. We do know that we had anticipated we'd see more contact points. It didn't happen this year, but we know that when we look at comparables for our partner districts who also use the resource, they use it quite actively. So we're going to continue to push in and support them in using that tool along with our Frog Street curriculum to help them support with their IEP writing. So this is a resource that has been used extraordinarily well, and we had lots of honorable mentions. So we're very proud of our district and our school leaders and our teachers who have used this resource. We also make sure that all of our resources are available in a one-stop shop through our instructional hub. This is a one-stop shop for special education. It is outward-facing, and so anyone in the world really can access it and say, hey, we heard there are great things happening in KCK. We'd like to tap into that resource, and we welcome that, and we welcome the feedback as people access this website and see all of the resources that we are constantly uploading and adding to help teachers get the job done. This is another opportunity where we evaluate the work that we do in professional development. Our professional development calendar for this past year offered 19 hours of district PD that could be provided at the high-end kind of level. So what did we do? You know, we know how to squeeze a turnip in special education, and we got more than just blood out of this turnip. We were able to find other opportunities when some of our teachers were not in CKLA or in letters or specialized training that was mandatorily provided. We were able to look at what subgroups have not been provided support. Let's snag that group and provide them with PD on those early release days as well as on those Fridays that are part of the calendar. We don't want to miss a moment to provide professional growth opportunities to our staff and for people to hear it all at once. Of course, we undergird that with our job-embedded professional development, which also has high impact and high yield. So you can see just a summary of how that time was spent and in those categorical components. We are still leaning into the work of Marilyn Friend, and although this year our calendar did not allow us to meet as often with our secondary gen ed partners because of the structure of the work that had to be done around training for AVID and some other priorities, we did say, well, where can we have those partnerships be improved? And one was with early childhood special education and our early childhood programming, and we've made great progress in that area, and very excited that we're welcomed to join to provide that PD at the beginning of the year and then ongoing PD around co-teaching best practices. This is one of our examples. I think you might have seen this last year. This is always that wonderful SPED kickoff where we offer another opportunity for professional development for specialized groups. We're not only looking at paraprofessionals who receive that training, our related service providers, our school psychologists, our SLPs, our OTs, all of those specialized clinicians, but also for our teachers and specialized groups. We also then say, well, we can't not just take care of our teachers and not take care of and professionally develop our team. So our leadership team is always involved when it's our special ed instructional coaches as well as our SPED coordinators, a lot of them who are here tonight, in lots of professional growth and development provided not only by the executive team but by external sources as well that's evidence-based and has provided some great mentoring opportunities. And many of us also were so thankful that we were able to be a part of the Greenbush leadership training for our team this year as well. How are we then addressing the issue of staffing? Well, I will tell you, we're in better shape than we were. And I will say that HR has done a fantastic job of working with us to partner and strategize on how we can best keep our staffing where we'd like to have it, which always is 100%. But as you can see, we've vetted lots of applications. We participated in many of the HR provided fairs, along with the one that you'll see us be a part of that's coming up in a few days. But also, we've created some structures to help with that process. So we also allow weekly interview blocks via Zoom where we're able to interview up to 18 candidates a week, and that is a standard for the entire year. So you'll never have to hear us say there wasn't time to get someone interviewed. And if you're looking for work, we have some wonderful opportunities in the special education department. Wink, wink, that's our plug for tonight. So we'd love to have you join us and apply for some of the wonderful positions that are available. So when we look at the scrolls here, we have some summative information about how we started and ended the year. We were able to have most of our positions that are high needs and hard to fill staffed. Our speech pathologists, as you can see, 85%, and I can let you read that. There's some 100%, 93%, some of our specialty areas. But one that I want to just bring more information and clarity, and Dr. Lowry kind of spoke to it before, was about the school psychological services. And we've had to be really out of the box and creative, and we've been able to staff 100% in those positions so that we can get the work done. At no time is a student ever without an adult human person to provide and support that evaluative process. So although we've had to use our virtual psychs, and just let's face it, that's not going away, not just for KCK, but across the nation. But use those school psychs. They have what are almost like paraprofessionals that are there to help provide support to the student while they're being evaluated virtually, if that is the case. We also have our in-person school psychs, and then our academic evaluators, which are licensed teachers or licensed academic evaluators in another state who are specially trained to provide that academic evaluative testing and do the interpretation of that. So that really significantly reduces the workload of the school psychologists so they can focus their time and energy on those achievement and aptitude tests that can only be done by school psychologists. So our students are always with the evaluators who that's done in person, as well as with our psych assistants who support those virtual. We also know that when we have great staff in place, we're able to meet the needs of our learners. So we talked a lot about our students with disabilities, but what about our students with exceptionalities? I hope you didn't miss this event. Market Night was an exciting, I see lots of smiles in the room. Market Night is an exciting night where we have that project-based learning and real-world content and opportunities. This year, the focus, last year, if you remember, was Enigma. This year was focused on future entrepreneurs. And so our students were able to do pitches. They were able to buy particular spots based on where they thought they would have more people actually come to their marketplace and spend their bucks. And it was a great opportunity for them to see how to design a business from ideation to the process of implementation. There were mentors and people who were also supporting them along the way, and wonderful teachers through our gifted education program and our coordinator for that, who helped to provide this experiential learning opportunity for students. Now, I know many of us were very, very busy getting our taxes filled out if you waited to the last minute, but that week, April 14th, that weekend, was a very busy one for the SPED department. We not only had our Parent Empowerment and Transition Fair, the second one of its year, the second one that we've held, and it was a great success to allow our parents to come in, be empowered, learn the laws, be supported, and partner with families together. But we also had a transition fair that speaks to some of those indicator data points that Dr. Lowry mentioned about post-secondary planning for our students. This happened on Saturday, the 15th, but the day before, we were able to say, welcome back to Job Olympics. Post-COVID, we were not able to do it, and boy, did the kids miss it. So they were super excited when it was time to have Job Olympics again, that was spearheaded by Mike Stanley and Robert Young. We thank them, our teachers who were willing to coordinate as a labor of love this process, along with our coordinators and leadership team who work with those specialized programs. Throughout the co-op, we were able to have students from all the districts represented, and I'll let you see some of the winners circle and how active and engaged they were in real-life opportunities to show what they know, from interviewing and professional skills as well as soft skills, being able to socialize, being able to talk to professionals about their hopes and dreams, and also do some specific tasks and be able to win awards and prizes. We had 4 participating districts from KCK area in Wyandotte County, and over 200 students and 91 awards were earned. The students were super excited, and their excitement was just contagious. You couldn't help but be happy to see these students show us what they know and what they worked hard for all year. Later that night, as if the party couldn't keep going, we also had a wonderful group of area attorneys who sponsored an event at Harmon, which was the school dance. So of course, we can't be all work and no play. Our students learn those soft skills and professional skills and real world learning, but they also need to know that in the real world, those soft skills are important. Socializing, having friends, dancing all night until your feet hurt is an important part of growing up. And so as you can see, maybe in the middle at the bottom picture, we had our attorneys there, and some of the kids danced all night. They were dressed up all fancy, and we're really excited to have this wonderful dance that evening at Harmon High School. So we appreciate everyone who helped to contribute to the success, and Dr. Lowry was able to hand out a lot of those awards, and the students, their day and week was completely made. So what I'd like to do now is turn it back over to Dr. Lowry, where she is going to share with you our oversight and accountability, our final priority, and end our presentation. Thank you.
I know this is long, I'm so sorry. We're going to wrap this up. We got a lot, we want to share it all. So for our oversight and accountability, this slide really speaks for itself. It just talks about this is year 2 for our CompuSped system. And as we're going into year 3, we know that we have a lot more improvement to do with our data collection, and we'll always have that lag behind on the data, but we are going to continue to make adjustments. But I wanted you to be able to see the amount of hours that CompuSped served our staff, and the help that they provided us, and the time that was spent to make sure that we had the proper training to implement this new system. And just as I wrap up these last few slides, I just wanted to talk about our efforts in changing the SPED culture and climate. I wanted to leave you with how our SPED leadership training, our SPED leadership team are trying to change the culture and climate. And this year I had the opportunity to collaborate with KNEA, develop our SPED advisory group as a result of our findings from our KU study completed during my first year. And I had the opportunity to partner with Dr. Robertson with KU. I believe Sue Robertson is here from KU tonight. So I want to thank you, Dr. Robertson, for being here and supporting our district and our department. We will continue to work together to get more data around our culture and climate. Just to give you some general purpose, our special education advisory group is made up of several key stakeholders. We have parents on this group, we have teachers, we have administrators, we have our board member Drew, Ms. Drew, that represents on the group. So we are really trying to change the culture and the climate by having more people involved at the table, sharing concerns and working through those things in a collaborative manner. I also initiated SPED huddles. I borrowed this idea from Dr. Stubblefield. She does these SPED huddles with the district, and I decided that I needed to be able to have some time with special education teachers and paraprofessionals to be able to have some face-to-face time to bring their concerns, get updates, and really try to build that trust and that connectedness that we know is what retains really good staff. And then I just would like to say, when you have over 500 staff, they all play an essential role in improving students' services for students and families. But I do want to take the time to acknowledge any of my team members that are here in leadership that came and hung out with us tonight. If you could, please stand and be recognized, because I know that the work that we commit to is not easy, but we really are trying to do our best to provide the necessary services. And so I know our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our service providers, our psychs, they're all listed, they're all shown here in some of these pictures. We are striving to do what is best for students each and every day, and we're striving to do what's best for each other. So I thank you, board, for allowing me this extended time to present on work that we have done in the special education department, and thank you, Dr. Stubblefield, for allowing me this time to share this SPED report. I will take any questions and feedback at this time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lori, for the thorough report from you and your staff. We really appreciate the thoroughness of the report. Would open up the floor for board members' questions, comments, feedback. Yes, Ms. Russell.
If nobody else will go, I'll go. Okay, so I have some questions that I will have in my follow-up based on the presentation, but I do want to acknowledge and thank you all for this lengthy but also knowledgeable presentation here tonight. The first question that I kind of have related to both the community comment that was provided tonight, but we also were at this juncture last year, and it is one of those things that continues to be utilized as the board policy says we can't have outside providers who parents have contracted with through Medicaid or whatever. Last time I thought we were told we would address this. Here we are today, and it's come up again. So I have looked through board docs, Greg. I don't see anything. The most common thing that I did see was related to JQL and JQLA, which were both focused or centered around students with exceptionalities, both when we're talking about class sizes, but also when we're talking about additional caseloads. So one is JQLA is related to the class size and the caseload situation, and then the process for exceptional student, the hearing process. But I'm not sure what policy keeps being told is the board policy that does not allow for external partners who are licensed to come into our school buildings. And is it that we need to have a process of an MOU? I just need clarity because I don't like feeling like we keep getting blamed for something. It was said it would be addressed, and here we are again, and it's not been addressed. So.
I'm not sure I know exactly what the issue is. I think some of these are kind of case by case in a situation where you may have somebody who is requesting a service that the district is responsible for providing either through the IEP process or otherwise, and the district selects its own contractors to provide those services. And when you have somebody who's coming from the outside, they may or may not be qualified, or somebody that we can contract with. So I'm not sure what the specifics of each situation might be.
So I think you're following me correctly. However, in both of these situations, the district does not provide these services, so they have kind of gone out, seeked them. However, the services need to be provided during the workday. But what I hear you saying to me and the board is that we don't currently have a policy that forbids that action.
I think my only hesitation is I don't want to give a blanket statement without knowing the specifics of a specific situation, because my concern in saying that might be, as that applies to a specific situation, there might be a reason why you're not having somebody from the outside in. Does that make sense?
I will pull both of the emails that we've received, or we all have the one from tonight. Yeah. The one from last year, we also all have. And I will bring it back to the board in the policy work of we need to either identify or we need to be clear that we do not have that policy. Or this is what implementation looks like moving forward. Correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. My other question is related to both community comments and some commentary from those of us within the district that attended a community session, but also feedback from Spanish-speaking families or multilingual families who feel like they do not have the access to information that they need. Do we provide SPED information in multi-language categories? Okay.
We're required to provide the home language of families, all the information.
Okay. And I also recognize that previously you stated the phone that parents call.
Yeah,
You also still have
Yes,
translation services.
and I man
so that number can still be utilized
Absolutely.
as a resource. Okay.
Absolutely.
Thank you for that clarity. The one sticking point, or the one thing that is not necessarily, I'm not quite understanding, thank you for the information around the interventions utilized to reduce behavior issues. That work should be, yes, kudos to you all, but I am concerned about when you tell someone this is what we're not going to do, that you do everything to not get to the 5%, but there are continually, when I go in buildings, the supports are not there as it relates to behavior intervention team work. What it actually looks like, based on what I've heard, is that the student is removed from the classroom, and then that principal has to then pull other staff to be with those students that are being pulled from rooms. How do we provide additional supports? What needs to be done to be able to have set aside behavior rooms?
We actually have behavior programs for students who qualify to go into those programs that have significant behaviors. But we also, for special education, we offer the behavior support team, so anyone can request the behavior team to come out. That's some of the information that Dana shared tonight about the number of hours that go into those requests. And we do have BCBAs and RBTs on staff that go in, work with the teachers, write up behavior plans or safety plans, and they will stick in the classroom with them to implement those. So that's what we offer as special education that I know I can speak to and have the data to support.
Okay. And then lastly, I just wanted a little bit of clarity around the school psych. So it said it was 100% staff, but I heard we are short psychs, and then I heard we're doing virtual. So I just wanted to have clarity, not only for my own self, but just for everyone within the district. Do we have 30 that work for the district, or we have 30 that are a combination of all the things?
Okay, so we have 30 sites that work for the district, but they work from the district in different capacities. Some of them are contracted staff, some of them are direct hire staff. And we have a combination of in-person sites that are direct hires and contracted, and then virtual sites as well, that are all contracted because we don't offer virtual.
Okay. Thank you for the clarity. Thank you for answering my questions.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Additional questions? Yes, Ms. Drew.
I'd just like to say that your presentation was excellently presented. You looked at the past, engaged in the present, and then directed us on information for an upcoming school year. To gain, we must look back, but we also have to recognize by looking back, we're going to move forward. So I just wanted to say thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Drew. Yes, Ms. Clark.
I agree. Thank you so much for the presentation today. My question is around, well, I know all of our parents are important and we want to make sure we're involved. You're specifically speaking to SPED tonight. So I'm just curious about your interaction with parents. I know the touch points were mentioned. I don't think parents have access to that site That's a question mark. So I'm just curious about how we're working with our parents and making sure that there's that frequent conversation that's taking place. And then I'll add an additional on there. Some of our kids, of course, are with guardians, and then, that becomes a little bit sticky sometimes because I've seen some of those situations. And so I'm just curious about how our staff feels supported in those situations where maybe it's a little bit harder even at home.
Yeah, we do have situations where we have students that are in foster care, or we have students that are being raised by other family members, but we in special education have to make sure that we are reaching out to the educational decision maker, which is the parent, whether they're in the home or not. Even we have parents that are incarcerated. If their rights have not been terminated, we are obligated to still reach out to those individuals. But the day-to-day communications that our teachers engage in can be engaged in with the home in which the student is being cared for. So we do have to balance all of that, and sometimes there is some confusion on, well, why I can't get this information, or why I have to have a parent to give authorization for me to attend. That's because we have to look at who has the educational decision, who has the rights. And so we can talk to both, but we do have to make sure that we involve the parents. And so it is the expectation that case managers, whether it's a SPED teacher or a related service provider that case manage, that they have open and communication with their families. And then on the district level, where as part of the SPED advisory, we're actually looking at trying to do more and get more parents involved and empower them through our empowerment trainings and transitions, but we're wanting to take it a step further through our SPED advisory, because one thing that has been very clear is that our parents don't have all of the information. They don't have all the knowledge around their rights. And I am a parent first, and so I believe that we have to empower our parents. And so as part of that effort in our SPED advisory group, we are planning right now, and hopefully we can have our first event as a group in August, where we can invite parents in, do whatever we need to do, couple it with, back to school night, where we can feed our families and say, we want to empower you, because the power rests in the parents' hands. And so we are making all of those efforts to bridge those gaps and to bring more parents involved. Parents do reach out on our hotline, like Ms. Russell questioned about, and we're able to communicate that. We just got to do more. We just have to do more.
Thank you, Dr. Lowry. I just thank you for that explanation. We talk a lot about our community. We've had people ask how they can be involved. I'm not asking for an answer here. But I'm just thinking about ideas. We've had groups come to us and say, what can I do? And it just makes me, I definitely don't want to segregate this group, but if there's ever a need that we need to be looking at, as far as, we have tons of community members that come and say, how can I help? And I just think about the work that you're doing and the 1,000 students, I think I wrote the number down, 1,200 students that we're supporting. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Additional questions, comments?
4,000.
Yes.
Where did I get 12,000, 1,200?
1,200 was the student suspensions that I mentioned.
Thank you. I'm like, I know I heard 1,200 tonight. Sorry, I know I heard 1,200 tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Page, yes.
Again, thank you. Considering that we've had kind of back-to-back years, 39 vacancies in SPED, how is the state helping you, knowing that you have 39 vacancies? And I would think for the last 3 or 4, I'll be corrected if I'm wrong, but just from what I've seen, it's been pretty consistent. Are they working with you? And
Yeah, the state really is. They're working with all districts, but I know they work specifically with us. They allow us to have our LAL, which is our previously known as para-to teachers, so growing our own to become special education teachers. We have teachers that are gen ed teachers that the state allows a waiver for, so they can start programming and start teaching in special education while going to school. The state helps us when they extend some of the days that allow special subs to be in buildings to help cover some of those vacancies. The state, I have to say, my state mentors have been 100% supportive. I meet with them every Tuesday, and we problem solve, and we talk through what it was and how we can get to where we need to be. They have been very supportive, but those are just a few things that they're doing specifically in this state to help us fill some of those vacancies.
Thank you, Dr. Lori. Additional questions, comments? Again, thank you. I know that was a ton of information and a ton of time that your team to put together this information. I'm glad to hear and see the successes and the growth that we're seeing that you've been able to share today. I think it was important, that you acknowledge, I know, like the state looks at 15 cases, right, and says, we're doing great. But your acknowledgement of there are some gaps still, and you and the team are working through that. So acknowledging, that I think has been helpful for us as well. And your continued work with KU and with the team, I'm grateful to say, and I think that's in any area and every area within the district, right? That we're doing well, we're seeing some growth, there are still gaps, and SPED is like any other department in that way, that there are challenges still, but we're seeing some of that growth. So thank you for sharing that and for touching on the climate culture, because I think that is something that's come up a few times. So I appreciate being able to acknowledge and for you to share what's happening in that space. So again, thanks for your leadership. Thanks for sharing. And board, I would just also say with the SPED advisory, I know Ms. Drew was assigned to participate in those meetings, and they meet quarterly. Dr. Lowry, I don't know if you have the schedule of those meetings already, or if you know those. If you could share those with, or if Ms. Drew, if you have them, if you could share them with Ms. Smith, and then Ms. Smith can share them to the full board. I would encourage board members, if as you're interested as well, and I didn't ask Dr. Stubblefield this, but I just think it's important as well if we have an interest, if there's another board member or two that might be interested in joining and hearing what's happening, that could be helpful. And I know there's a lot that we need to do and work through with the SPED work and in all areas, but just wanted to make sure that board members were aware of when those meetings happen.
Yes, I can get that information.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lowry.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Lopez,
Yes, Dr. Nguyen, I'm sorry.
just want to share with you, I will be on an interim special committee on special ed, a task force this summer, so I will reach out to you because there are some members who are not supportive of more additional funding for SPED.
Thank you so much for representing.
Thank you.
Yeah. I think that's important. I know that's one of the board priorities for our policy priorities is to advocate for increased funding in SPED. All across the state we're seeing that. So thank you for sharing that, Dr. Nguyen. We'll continue with our agenda, our next agenda item, item number 11, board. It says board budget discussion. Really what this is in regards to is whether the board wants to join CUBE as a member, as a school district. The budget discussion of the overall board budget we'll get into at our budget meeting on the 26th. Today, there was a question posed and there was information shared whether we want to, as a school district, to join membership of CUBE. There's been interest, there were some questions, information has been shared. I know the cost for membership was also shared, and I can pull that up as well. The cost is $12,975 for an annual membership because of the size of our district. So some of the pros, we shared some of the benefits of being a member, which include some cost savings potentially for registration and for their annual conference and other sessions that they might have. So I'd open up the floor for conversation, discussion, whether this is a membership that we want to be a part of. We currently, the memberships that I can think of right now, KASB, NSBA, CUBE is a part of NSBA as well, but would open the floor for comments, questions.
Brandon,
Yes, Ms. Russell.
can I make a motion that we join or we become members of CUBE, which is a adjunct group of NSBA?
There is a motion to become members of CUBE. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a second. Would open the floor for conversation, questions, discussion. Ms. Humphries.
cost for Cube is $12,975, and that includes one free registration to the Cube conference. And then you also get, I believe it's $125 discount for registrations. So that is a substantial amount, but do we know how much we're paying for KASB? How much we're paying for NASB? And then is the cost benefit? We need to look at that, I think. I know that to get that discount, we have to join by July 21st, which is a month away. That if we're going to be, I think we need to look at our board budget before we join another organization. Not saying it's not a worthy organization, I'm just saying we need to look and see what we are really putting out. Because we can go to the CUBE conference whether we're a member or not.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Ms. Russell?
I was just going to comment that that information was provided in the transaction details. The base per building size is relative to both KSB and NSBA. However, NSBA, it looks like it's a little cheaper than KSB membership. I also would just want to give kudos to the board of really being fiscally responsible this year. If you look at the overall cost analysis of our board budget, we have drastically reduced our expenses, with travel and professional development being two of the highest items. However, I think it has allowed for us to think more innovatively, to network with individuals from other districts and truly bring back what we have learned. And even if it's amongst each other, I know that there have been a lot of positive conversations from those things. So just wanted to add that to it.
Thank you, Ms. Russell. Additional comment? Yes, Ms. Page.
Well, I'm looking at our budget, the 3-year, and I don't see anything for out-of-district travel. Is that somewhere else? And I didn't see where it listed. I was just wondering, it's not on here, but where is it? And where does it have all the costs for the other 2 conventions? I don't see that there. Is that falling under miscellaneous, or where does it fall?
Are you in the agenda?
No, you're on the agenda, and it says 3-year board budget, and I don't see anything.
The second line, or there's a first one that says 5.8, and there's a third one that says 5.8, and it says 19,000 in the professional development.
I don't even see professional development on here.
While they're looking, I think we paid $25,000 to KASB. Is that correct?
That sounds right, but, and I mean, I think what they provide, because it's more, so it's a lot more layers and other
And it's also based on size.
size, yeah. So that's accurate. I mean, if you're looking at that number.
Yeah, there's not much comparison.
Yes, Ms. Drew.
I'm in agreement with Janie, and in fact, I think we need to look at it a little bit more, because one of my main concerns is we travel, but it's very rare that we actually come together as a board, be able to discuss what we've attended, what we've learned, how we can implement it as a board within our school district. And I just think that right now, we need to regroup and restructure and re-advise ourselves as to how we can implement this within our school district. And I would be willing to wait and let us bring it in next year after we go through a full discussion as to whether or not we need to bring it a part of our school district. And again, that's just my opinion.
Thank you, Ms. Drew.
Well,
Dr. Nguyen.
I just add, by definition, it deals with urban school districts, and there was two different two different stories here. At the KSB board meeting, Brian Jordan encouraged us as school districts to attend the conference because he thought it was valuable. And this is talking to an organization, Kansas, that predominantly is rural. Then the other issue is that this does focus on urban, and we are urban. So it has, by definition, a legitimacy that actually serves more than perhaps Kansas Association of School Boards. But you would never, well, I won't say you'd never, because there are not 286 school districts that belong to KASB, but still. So I would support it.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen. Additional comment, Ms. Clark?
Just because we're not members does not stop us from going to the conference, and I just want to make sure, I want to make sure, so Dr. Nguyen,
No, my point was, conference is one thing, but there was an encouragement also that the organization provided service.
Okay.
And this is coming from the executive director talking to a group of rural, predominantly rural Kansas board of directors.
Okay, that's the clarification. I just wanted to make sure I understood.
Thank you. Ms. Humphries?
The other thing I want to make sure we do, and you said we're not going to get into the whole budget, is that I would think that our KASB would show up under dues and fees, and it doesn't look like it does.
Yeah, I think those are coding issues that we've just got to work through, so, and including like out-of-district travel, and it's just, I think we just have to figure out how we're coding things, but all the membership dues and fees have been accounted for. If I remember correctly, the budget that was approved last year that was presented to the board did break out specifically, and so I don't know where in board docs it is, but I know it's in there. It did break out specifically all the membership fees, the cost. Additionally, we did some math around potential travel costs and registration. So I think we accounted for the KESB and NSBA conference for all board members plus one other conference. So all that was in that previous budget, which we'll get into, but I think you're right, it's just the coding pieces.
Can it be me again? I would be curious to know, so I am definitely not against it. I 100% support it. I would be curious to know about the services and how our staff would be able to use the services, because I believe they probably would use them more than even the board members. That's question mark, question mark. So if we're looking at services, because we have a lot of services that are accessible to us, I would be curious to make sure that we are leveraging those services for our dollar. That's what I would put out there.
I hear what she's saying, but I also want to be cognizant to what Dr. Nguyen also just said. Do we have that same expectation when we join KSB and NSBA? And this is a little bit of me taking this personal, because when it comes to urban or black and brown, we always expect more. And so I'm not saying that's your intent, but that is a little bit of what it can feel like.
And while it may feel that way, all the things that we go through on our board agenda, every time someone brings $1 in front of us, one of the things we say is, what's the expectation? What are we going to get? So to me, I'm asking the same bullet points that we ask for other things.
And I'm just saying, if we're going to do it for CUBE, I want us to make sure that it's relevant for NSBA membership and for KSB KASB. That's all I'm saying.
I started by saying I 100% support this. That was the beginning of my statement. I 100% support this. I also heard the word services. Services means a lot of things, and so I just want us to understand or know at least what the services are. So that's my statement.
And Randy, I just want to end with this, and I'm going to get off of my thing, is I don't want us to continue to kick this can down the road, because I brought it up last year. I have continued to bring it up. So if the board does not agree with it, people have had time to look and do their due diligence, as I have. I'm just asking that we move forward, vote, and if it is not the will of the board, then let's stop. But I've given people 18 months to figure it out, respectively.
I think Dr. Stubblefield had something.
I will be brief. to the point of services, the other urban districts who are members, I do collaborate with them. There are certain things that they have that we don't necessarily have access to because we're not members. And I just want to remind the board, and I am Switzerland in this, but KU did say that it's important for us to, in that scan that came back, for us to find districts that are with similar demographics to look at what they're doing innovatively and comparatively. And that's where board members and superintendents around CUBE, like, yes, we can go to the conference, but there are a lot of other activities that they communicate information out to superintendents and districts that are only shared with the actual members.
So Dr. Stubblefield, you just answered my second question. All I was asking about is the services. What does that mean and how does it help you? That's all I'm asking. So other than that, I'm supportive. I'm the one that seconded the motion. So there we go.
Okay, additional questions or comments?
No, you just seconded so it wouldn't die.
No, I mean, it was.
So I can have a voice at this table. Yes, that's exactly what happened.
All right, if there are no other questions, there's a motion and a second on the floor to go ahead and to become members of CUBE. Ms. Smith, would you please do a roll call?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, no.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries. I vote no on the membership for now, but I fully support us going to the conference. I'm just not sure about the budget yet. I would prefer that we know exactly what our budget's going to be. But that's, yeah.
okay, thank you. Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes?
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Motion carries. Our next agenda, and just as a follow-up, if you were interested in attending the CUBE conference, it is in September in Chicago, and I know a few board members have expressed interest. Please let Ms. Smith know so that she can work on conference registrations and travel logistics and lodging. If we have, I think there's a group discount. I know there's individual discounts, but please work with Ms. Smith if you are interested in attending the CUBE conference in September.
And I have the itinerary.
Thank you. Dr. Nguyen, you said you have the itinerary?
Yep.
Okay, just want to make sure. Thank you. Okay, our next agenda item, we have one executive session. We can dismiss any staff that are not a part of the executive session.
That's everyone with the exception of Dr. Campbell and Ms. Devon.
Okay, thank you so much for tonight, staff. Would entertain a motion to recess to executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of parties involved under COMA, going in at 8:30, give folks a few minutes. Going in at 8:30 for 10 minutes?
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
7 minutes.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Smith?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes?
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. motion to return to open session, please?
So moved.
And seconded. Questions? Ms. Smith, roll call.
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew, Janie Humphries,
Yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Walter Brownlee Page, yes.
Rachel Russell,
Rachel Russell, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Yes.
Thank you. We're back in open session. Thank you, board, for the great discussion tonight. Thank you, staff. If there's no other comments, again, just a reminder of our board budget meeting on the 26th here in person at 9:30 a.m. Other than that, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. Have a good night.
You'll be able to act. What day of the week is that?
Okay.